Hello, and welcome to our Mission Green presentation about the Carbon Neutral Initiative for Good Shepherd Church. This video will primarily focus on a broad overview of the proposal and question and answer with our three guests who have significant expertise in the areas of sustainability and alternative energy technologies. First, we'd like to give you a quick overview of the Mission Green Initiative. We will briefly touch upon the essential elements of the project, but we strongly encourage you to go to our website, www.missiongreen.llc, for more in-depth articles about each element, as well as many pictures showing the solar canopy and pergola and the heat pumps. Mission Green LLC is a mission with a company. This company was created by us, Jim and Liz Fritz, solely for this initiative. We are 30-year members of Good Shepherd and live just 2 blocks from the church. We are retired music teachers of the Decorah Community School District, and we also had a small rental business, as well as over 25 years of house renovation and real estate ventures. Our mission is to encourage our community to move towards sustainable, renewable energy use. This includes a focus on being carbon neutral. So what is carbon neutrality? Carbon neutrality is a state of net zero carbon dioxide emissions. It is the point when no fossil fuels are consumed and energy is supplied by the renewables, or the emissions created are offset in other ways. Some businesses and individuals achieve this through the act of purchasing credits to offset their energy usage. However, for this initiative, we are wanting to achieve a net zero carbon production of energy consumption for Good Shepherd. This would be accomplished by 2 large solar arrays, which would create all of the energy needed for heating, cooling, lights, and power, and new air-to-air heat pumps to replace the 5 aging furnaces still remaining on the Good Shepherd campus. Mission Green would build all the infrastructure needed for this net zero goal and accept all liabilities. Good Shepherd would pay for their energy usage via a power purchase agreement, or PPA, with Mission Green for a period of up to 7 years. Additionally, a lease-to-own program would cover the cost of the heat pumps and the necessary electrical upgrades. At the end of the ownership, at the end of the PPA, a mandated buyout of the solar installations at fair market value would then turn ownership over to Good Shepherd. The lease-to-own for the heat pumps would also terminate at that time. During this entire time, Good Shepherd would be net zero and have achieved carbon neutrality. After the contract is complete, Good Shepherd would enjoy free energy usage for up to the 30-year lifespan of the solar arrays.
We have 3 special guests today with individual expertise in areas of sustainability, new technologies, and the business of PPAs and leases. Our first guest is Joel Zuck. Joel has provided guidance to over 200 homes and business owners throughout his work at the Winneshiek Energy District. He has extensive experience working with solar and is aware of and knowledgeable in heat pump technologies. Additionally, he has worked with many farmers to help them reduce their carbon footprint and make their enterprise more successful. He has just accepted a new position as Energy Services Coordinator for the City of Ames Electric Department. Ames has recently adopted an exciting and aggressive climate action plan that he will be helping to implement. Congratulations to you, Joel. Our second guest will be Jim Martin Schramm. Jim is Professor Emeritus at Luther College. He joined the Religion Department in 1993. He is an ordained Lutheran minister. He was formerly the administrator for the Energy and Climate Program for the Center for Sustainable Communities at Luther College. He is frequently sought out for his expertise on climate change and sustainability. Our final guest is Larry Grimstad. Larry is retired from banking after being a community bank president for 25 years in Decorah. He then began a new career experimenting with sustainability projects. He and his wife, Diane, have built a net zero home. Larry was instrumental in creating Green Penny, a division of Decorah Bank that supports green initiatives. He has created several PPAs, including one with Luther College. Thanks to our guests for sharing their expertise with us today. Before we turn it over to them, I would like to remind you again, if you need more details, please visit our website at www.missiongreen.llc. Additionally, there is a place on the website that you can email us, or you can get our email and phone numbers from the Courtyard app that is for the church directory. We now turn to our guests. Thanks again for your willingness to participate in this informational presentation. First, we'd like to go to Joel Zuck to speak about the technology that we are integrating into the system. This includes a rooftop solar array, an array on a pergola, and LG air-to-air heat pumps. So Joel, why not just replace what we have?
Well, I think the big goal is to be able to do everything with solar power, right? And so you can't solar power a gas furnace. That's maybe the oversimplistic way of saying it, but what you're looking at is a way that you can use electricity that you're going to generate yourself from clean renewable power right on your site that will be able to both heat and cool and power your building. And so really, when you're looking at a 100% renewable option, the really feasible option for any building right now is looking at some sort of electric heat, heating that uses electricity. I think that maybe many of you have an idea in your head that electric heat is expensive, and it's true that it is, but these air-to-air heat exchangers are very similar to like a geothermal system, which of course uses electricity, but does so much more efficiently. So this is a great energy efficient way to use your own produced renewable energy that you're doing there on site.
So then, do you feel that what is proposed is the best equipment available to meet the needs for Good Shepherd?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you guys have got some aging equipment, and I think the biggest thing that I'm thinking about, and I know that you've talked about this as well, is that if you're looking at replacing those systems with another gas system, it's going to be 20 or 30 years before you've got the opportunity to replace that again. From a cost-effective standpoint, the time to replace things is at the end of existing equipment's useful lifespan. And so the time to replace that equipment is now. You're going to have to do it one way or the other. And it's so great that you're looking at this option that really is going to be what others are going to be doing over the next 5 or 10 years. I think this is going to become very commonplace. But what you're doing is avoiding locking yourself into that decision to use gas for the next 30 years with new equipment that you're going to have to spend on. And it wouldn't do any good to rip that out in 10 or 20 years before the end of its useful time. So planning now for a net zero future, and really being able to get to net zero in the very near time frame, it's really exciting to me. And I think that you're going to have people both within Decorah and throughout the region copying you guys and following your lead.
So one of the things that I think is a little bit unfamiliar with is for folks is bifacial solar panels.
Mm-hmm.
Could you explain a little bit about why that should probably be a good choice for us?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing is that, if they understand about bifacial panels is that they're producing energy on both the front and the back side. And so that makes them more efficient from a space perspective. It makes them a little bit more efficient. But that space thing is kind of what you're looking at there, is how can we make these panels fit on our roof enough that we can do all this energy on site. And of course, as well, there's some design piece to it as well, as looking at that pergola space. Bifacial panels are they're reflective, or they're transparent, right? So the panels themselves are going to block and absorb much of the sun, but that's going to create really kind of nice pretty filtered light through the bottom of that. And then since the panels are bifacial, they are going to get any sunlight that bounces off the ground and make some energy out of those as well. So that, you know, they're a more efficient thing. You pay a premium for that, but it's a good system overall.
And finally, in regards to the heat pumps, do you feel like the heat pumps are going to be able to meet the needs of Good Shepherd in this proposal?
Well, sure. I mean, you've got your heating contractors designing the heating loads of your building, and you guys have done work over the past 10 or 20 years to make your building more energy efficient by doing insulation and tightening things up. And so you've got a pretty good handle on what the heating needs of the building are going to be. And these heat pumps are sized to meet that piece and can do so with you know, just very efficiently. Generally speaking, the heat pumps, air to heat pumps, are about 3 times more efficient than a regular electric piece. So you can correct the exact coefficient or multiplier there. So
3.5.
3.5. Oh, that's very good. Yeah. No, they're getting better all the time.
They are
You know,
getting better.
Say again.
They are getting better from when we put in our heat pumps on the other end of the building, and we were looking at air to air at that time. They have gotten better, and they can heat down lower than what they could even 3 years ago.
Right. Yes.
So, super. Thank you, Joel. Appreciate it. Next, we'll turn to Jim. Jim, why should sustainability be important to Good Shepherd?
Well, you know, I like to sometimes I think about, you know, what is our vocation as Christians? And the phrase that I just love, and it comes from the offertory prayer from the old green hymnal, is that we're dedicated to the care and redemption of all that God has made. One of the very first social statements produced by the ELCA back in 1993 was entitled Caring for Creation. And even though it was written, you know, almost 30 years ago, it reads like it was written yesterday. Sustainability features prominently throughout this key social statement. As we strive to care for creation and be good stewards of it, we need to take into consideration our duties to future generations and have their interests in mind as we try to, you know, deal with the pressing demands that are faced by present generations. If we don't protect the interests of future generations, who will? So sustainability is really key in the ELCA social statement. It's a key feature of it. And I think our commitments to sustainability are a powerful way to bear public witness to our Christian faith commitments. So by pivoting away from fossil fuel and toward renewable energy, Good Shepherd will achieve significant reductions in greenhouse gas emissions for future generations, while also reducing the impact of fossil fuel extraction on present generations. This is one way Good Shepherd can be a humble but courageous leader for Decorah and for our wider region. When people look at Good Shepherd Lutheran Church, they will see a community that seeks to be a model of the godly life rather than merely a reflection of the status quo.
Thank you. Thank you. That's great. Appreciate that. So we all know that the climate is in danger due to industrialization in the modern world. And what other concerns should we consider when we aim for net zero carbon neutrality here at Good Shepherd?
Yeah, I tried to address that when I talked about you know, reducing the impact of fossil fuel extraction on present generations. You know, so much of our fossil fuel is coming from countries that don't embrace democracy, or from regions where either the extraction of the fossil fuel or the refining of it is having a really deleterious effect on the people who live in those areas. And so simply by shifting to renewable energy sources, that's a key part of moving away from our reliance on countries that don't share our democratic values, and by ultimately hoping to relieve these communities of the burdens they bear by hosting coal-fired power plants, oil refineries, natural gas distribution, and transfer facilities, etc.
I agree completely. Well, as an ordained minister, would you please share your thoughts and concerns regarding sustainability and this initiative specifically?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was trying to say by connecting my initial remarks to the Caring for Creation social statement. Caring for creation is central to our identity as Christians. It's, we're supposed to be good stewards of God's creation. And so I really think an initiative like this is a really public way of testifying to those kinds of commitments, which, as we know, in the age of rapid climate change and rapid warming, this aspect of our vocation, we need to kind of ramp up. And so I see this initiative being very consistent with that vocation.
Well, final question for you then is, why don't you give us a 10-second pitch as to why would you encourage us to support this?
Right, and in the material you sent to me, Jim, you asked me to speak from my experience with projects like this at Luther College, and as I think pretty much anybody watching this knows, Luther has made some really big investments in energy efficiency and in renewable energy technology. And I think one of the things that, so I think I have three responses to your question. So first is that Luther has discovered that the college's investments in energy efficiency and renewables have really helped the college reduce campus operating costs over the long run. So one reason to support this initiative is that it makes sense financially over the long term. Second, Luther has financed its large solar projects through long-term power purchase agreements and lease agreements with local investors. These arrangements have been a legal option in Iowa now for nearly a decade, and they have proven to be a creative and cost-effective way to finance transformative projects like these for other public entities like school districts and city governments. And so finally, then the third thing, I just want to reemphasize what becoming carbon neutral will mean in terms of both educating the youth of Good Shepherd about the importance of sustainability, and also bearing public witness to the rest of the world that caring for creation is fundamental to what it means to be a Christian. So I'll just finish by saying I have great respect and admiration for Good Shepherd, and I want to thank you for the many ways you have been leading our community and synod when it comes to demonstrating your commitment to sustainability and caring for creation. So thanks.
Oh, thank you, Jim. Appreciate your comments. Thank you. And now, Larry, I want to ask you about your journey to achieving net zero in your own life and your own home, and your emphasis at the bank and your own private efforts through various business projects that you've done, like PPAs, wind turbines, and so on. If you would just please share some of your personal thoughts about that.
Okay, well, thank you for inviting me, and hello to members of Good Shepherd Church. So Diane and I began studying how we could become carbon neutral back in the early 2000s. And I had the opportunity to meet with Martin Schramm back in probably 2008 and be a part of the Luther College sustainability and possibly future carbon neutral environment, and got to be a part of the yes, we can do this. And then on our own farm, we just experimented with wind and solar power. And I mean, back when we started doing that, solar panels that were 120 watt, and now I think you can probably get 500 and some watt panels. So that it was just fun to experiment with things, and then, you know, sequestering carbon on our farm. We have a farm, so let's look into what does it take to be the best sequestering land. So then I got an opportunity to be a part of a wind turbine project in Mitchell County. And there I learned about tax credits and grants and interest-free loans from the state of Iowa, and how to put a project together. And that really resonates with me, because I like how can we put projects together financially, and how can we accomplish being cutting our energy usage, and how to make it with wind and solar power. So it's all been kind of fun to do, and I've just enjoyed it.
Great, thank you. We appreciate the leadership too, from all of you, all three of you. So Larry, do you think that a PPA and a lease-to-own arrangement is a wise investment for Good Shepherd at this time? And if so, why?
Well, should we just talk about the PPA, a power purchase agreement? It's a 40-page document, scary, but it was a document that was used by utilities with utilities up until a few years ago. And then we got the opportunity back in about 2015, where we can now do a power purchase agreement, or buy and sell power, make that agreement between organizations, individuals. And so that kind of opened the door for us to try out a few new things. And so now we have the opportunity that we can sell power between you and I. We can also sell power to a nonprofit. And so with that capability of being able to sell power to a nonprofit, that gives us the opportunity to cut the cost of a project down considerably. Because if I can utilize tax credits, and then I can sell, and I can buy a project and utilize tax credits to pay back that project, along with the return that I'm going to get from selling the power to a nonprofit, it really cuts the project costs down. And so in addition to that, at the end of when the tax credit or the tax incentives are gone in about 7 years, then it'd be nice to sell that project to the nonprofit, and the nonprofit buys it for a discounted price. Because in 7 years, when you can do that, you don't know what the value of this solar array is going to be, but you're going to try to estimate that value up front, and you're going to try to have that discussion when you do the power purchase agreement. You're going to come up with an estimated amount, which is probably around 35% of the project cost that would need to be paid then by the nonprofit at the end of the 7 years, if they decided to do that. So the important thing is, from an investor standpoint, is that you've got to estimate this project up front to be profitable. Because if you can't estimate it to be profitable, you aren't going to get the tax credits. The IRS are going to take that back away from you in the end. So that's got to be designed into it as well. But between the availability of selling the power, maybe at a little lesser price, than what the utility is charging now. The ability to be able to buy it out at the end, and then there's a period where the nonprofit has to continue to pay for it for a while, but then at some point it will be, well, you have free power after that. So it's a great concept. You know, you're controlling your costs, where right now we aren't sure what our future costs are going to be for power. We're now establishing that future cost, but the investor has got to take has to take a great deal of responsibility and risk, because I mean, if your equipment for some reason has some problems, you've got to fix it. If your costs go up, you're fixed at a certain price, the investor is. So it's a good deal for the nonprofit in this case. Okay.
So are there any other congregations that any one of the three of you are aware of that are doing something like this, carbon neutral, net zero? Anybody know of anything, any place else?
Well, I know that the First Lutheran Church here in Decorah is considering it in the overall renovation.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure at what point we are with that, but I do believe it's under consideration.
Yeah, Jim, I'm not sure if I know of other congregations that have, but I know of many school districts and city governments that are in third-party power purchase agreements for solar to power their schools or their city operations. And in fact, you know, here in Eastern Iowa, we have 2 or 3 pretty large solar installers that have been providing access to third-party financing. One of which is Novak Electric here in Decorah, and they've done a lot of those projects. So, what you folks are trying to do is you know, yeah, it's relatively new, but it's not brand new. There's lots of folks that have been doing this, and it's got at least a 7-8 year track record. The legalities have been sorted out very well. It's nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah, and I'll add that, you know, I can't speak to the details of these projects because I'm not involved with them, but, you know, Vesterheim is looking at a new building, and they're looking at very much of how the new building, or perhaps the whole facility there, can be net zero. And the new Sunflower Child Care Center is planned to be a net zero building, and I think that they're on track for making that happen as they make that. And I know that the medical center is looking at additions, and they're saying, well, you know, of course, if we're building new, why wouldn't we look at building net zero for our new buildings? And so it's very much a thing, and that people are looking at for new construction, and as well as trying to figure out how we can get our old buildings retrofitted on the net zero track as well.
Great. Well, we want to thank all three of you for sharing your expertise in this critical topic, because we need to make a decision. It's a very important one for our church. It's a small congregation, and it's a big leap forward. We hope that this presentation has helped all of our Good Shepherd members to come to your own conclusions about the viability of the Mission Green Carbon Neutral Initiative. Again, we encourage you to reach out to either Liz or I. Our cell phones and our email addresses are on the Courtyard app for Good Shepherd. Yes, there's Liz in the corner there. And as well as we would encourage you to go to our website. We've got a lot of detail. If you really want to go deep into the weeds and find out specifics about this proposal and more than just a 10,000 foot overview, we would encourage you to go there. There's lots of pictures and lots of details. And that website address is www.missiongreen, one word, missiongreen.llc. So thank you again, Joel, Jim, and Larry, for joining us today. And we look forward to moving forward this, we hope. So thank you.
Thanks for having us. This is a great project. It's very exciting to see things, next steps get taken.
Thanks,
Good.
Jim and Liz, for your leadership.
Yeah, good luck with the project. And I hope Good Shepherd Church can become carbon neutral.
Thank you all.